The 2023 Arizona Diamondbacks are World Series bound, claiming their first National League pennant in over 2 decades. I did think this team had some special talent on their roster in early April, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think they had the talent to go the distance this early. This 84-win squad might have enough to win their second World Series in franchise history, but their first ring-winning team is certainly a tough act to follow, even 20 years after the fact. The 2001 Diamondbacks featured arguably the greatest 1-2 punch of starting pitchers in baseball history. Their offense was led by one of the most perplexing outlier seasons by a player ever. Their postseason ride featured pitching gems, multiple elimination games, and walk-offs galore, culminating in a date with an opponent vying to do something no other team had done in sports in multiple decades to that point. They were never the favorite, but in the end, they became the most memorable, and this is their story. Let's turn the clock all the way back to 1998. MLB sought to expand the league from 28 to 30 teams after seeing the early success of newly established franchises in the Florida Marlins and Colorado Rockies. The two newest teams to hit the block were the Arizona Diamondbacks and Tampa Bay Devil Rays. For the latter, they endured years upon years of forgettable play, losing 90 games or more in their first 10 seasons and never finishing higher than 4th place in the AL East. Such is the life of a new expansion team trying to find their footing in an already competitive landscape. Except this wasn't the life of the Arizona Diamondbacks. After a 65-win season in their first year, they shocked the baseball world with an 100-win campaign in just their second season. Led by former Yankees manager Buck Showalter, the team quietly traded for outfielder Luis Gonzalez in one of the most lopsided one-for-one trades in baseball history. They also made splash free agent signings for outfielder Steve Finley and, more importantly, hulking left-handed ace Randy Johnson, who many teams were afraid to sign because of his old age. He'd proved those teams were pretty naive by winning 4 Cy Youngs in a row for Arizona. Far different from the anemic offense they had in their first season, they got 25-plus home run campaigns from Steve Finley, Luis Gonzalez, as well as Matt Williams and Jay Bell. The big unit won the second Cy Young of his career in his debut season in the desert. But despite 4 All-Star players, the National League lead in runs per game with the second-best team ERA in all of baseball, the 1999 Diamondbacks were upset in the playoffs in the first round by the wildcard winning New York Mets. Still, in extremely quick fashion, the purple and teal squad had developed a fearsome identity. Things did, however, continue to trend downward in 2000, where a 12-17 month of September tumbled them out of playoff contention, as 85 wins was not enough to make it back to October play. This shockingly resulted in third-year manager Buck Showalter getting fired. But this came after making arguably the biggest trade in their franchise's brief history to that point, capitalizing on a disgruntled Curt Schilling and swiping him away from the Philadelphia Phillies in the second season of his 3-year contract worth $15 million. With the National League West being won by 4 different teams in the last 6 seasons, there was reason to believe that Arizona could bounce back and recover from a disappointing 2000 season. Halfway through May, Arizona was just keeping their head above water with an 18-18 record. Then, the 500 team sprung into action, with a 9-game win streak to close May and open June, as they swept the Padres, Giants, and then Padres again. Arizona went 31-13 through the end of June, bouncing back from that 500 mark to open a 6-game lead in the West. Let's meet some of the characters on this team. In the lineup, the Diamondbacks had just 3 hitters to put an above league average OPS. One of them was outfielder Reggie Sanders, who only spent this 1 season with the club, but he did hit 33 home runs. There was also free agent addition Mark Grace, who manned first base and walked nearly twice as many times as he struck out. The two made solid contributions behind the heart of the team, Luis Gonzalez. He posted an absurd 1.117 OPS, good for an OPS plus that was 75% better than the league average mark. He trailed only Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa in home runs and slugging percentage this year. Obviously, we're in the height of the steroid era here, and this random power surge in his 30s can likely be attributed to that, but it doesn't change the fact that he really carried this offense for the entire season. He had 3 separate months where he clubbed double-digit home runs, and 5 of the 6 months he had an OPS above 1,000. He also hit 9 home runs in the first 10 games of the season, which is an MLB record that still stands today. But this wasn't a typical year for many of the guys that Arizona considered reliable before. Oddly enough, Steve Finley endured one of his more mediocre seasons, coming off the heels of back-to-back 30 home run campaigns in the outfield. Being that he returned to form in his age 36 and 37 27 seasons in the 2 years that followed, his underwhelming 2001 season is certainly an outlier, but he did toss a scoreless inning for them that year, making him the most feared dual threat in the league. Outside of Finley, Matt Williams and Jay Bell also took a step backwards from their productive years with the Snakes before. Jay Bell did make a significant off-the-field contribution though. The year prior, he helped the Diamondbacks get their first ever mascot, D. Baxter the Bobcat. If you're like me and you've wondered why a team modeled after snakes had a bobcat as their mascot, the answer is Jay Bell's son, Brantley, who suggested to his dad that the team should incorporate something with B.O.B. for Bank One Ballpark, which was the former name of their home stadium. That turned into Bob, Bob turned into Bobcat, and then the Bobcat became the mascot. Are you confused? I am as well. But even with a strong trio of hitters in Sanders, Grace, and Gonzalez, their team weighted runs created plus of 97 put them as just the 15th highest ranked offense in baseball. They were a team that heavily relied on their pitching, as the staff was incredibly consistent. The rotation was obviously led by Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, who finished first and second in National League Cy Young voting respectively in both this year and the next year. Johnson set a career high mark in strikeouts with 372, and he led all pitchers in baseball in ERA, fielding independent pitching, whip, and strikeout per 9 rate.
And Randy Johnson has here represent the power captain.
I, for example, have a paper route.
Kill confirmed.
On the other end, Schilling threw more innings than any other MLB pitcher, while also leading in strikeout to walk rate. As it stands, they're just one of 9 teammate duos since 2000 to toss over 200 innings with a sub-3 ERA. They're also just one of 2 duos to do so, with both pitchers having a strikeout to walk rate above 5, joined only by the 2019 Astros duo of Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole. However, the rest of the rotation did little to help out behind them, with 11 different starting pitchers used during the season. Outside of Johnson and Schilling, Arizona starters combined for a 4.76 ERA, which would have been the 3rd worst mark in baseball that season. Longtime D-back Brian Anderson, Bobby Witt, not that one, Robert Ellis, and Albie Lopez didn't step up as much as necessary. The lone bright spot to back up the star duo was Miguel Bautista, who was endlessly shifted from a starter to a bullpen role throughout the year, but would make his biggest contributions in their ensuing October run. The bullpen did enough to stay afloat, but were led by a breakout season from Byung-Hyun Kim. After posting league average numbers through his first 2 seasons, he stepped up, throwing 98 innings with a 1.59 ERA plus, as he locked down 19 saves when their closer role was getting hot potatoed throughout most of the first half. Current Diamondbacks reliever Ryan Thompson said that he mimicked his entire pitching approach off Byung-Hyun Kim's stretch, which is something he's been doing since he was 8 years old. Despite sub-500 records in July and September, the Diamondbacks did enough in the second half to stay ahead of the Giants and claim their 2nd National League West title with a 92-70 record. They met up with the 93-win Cardinals in the first round under the guide of manager Tony La Russa for the 6th season in a row. This was back when La Russa was the spry young age of 56 years old, so surely no other team hired him 20 years after this season, right? Right? White Sox? St. Louis was propelled by Rookie of the Year winner Albert Pujols and a duo of Darryl Kyle and Matt Morris atop the rotation, but the latter was outdueled by Curt Schilling in their Game 1 matchup in what turned into one of the best pitching duels of that year's playoffs. Morris's 7 innings of 1-run ball was outshined by Schilling's 3-hit shutout, just his 2nd shutout of the year, leading Arizona to a 1-0 victory. The D-backs put up just 1 run in Game 2 as well, losing this time after the Cardinals jumped Randy Johnson in the first and won 4-1. After splitting the first 2 in Arizona, a pivotal Game 3 was set for Busch Stadium. Getting the ball on the road was Miguel Bautista. He held the Cardinals scoreless through 3 innings before finally getting tagged on this Jim Edmonds 2-run shot. Luis Gonzalez cut the lead in half with a solo home run of his own, but in the 7th inning, the Cardinals were 9 outs away from taking the lead in the series with another home game coming. But Arizona rallied to tie the game, setting up this Craig Counsell 3-run bomb to open up the lead and seal a victory. That was important because the Cardinals mashed off Albie Lopez in the bullpen in Game 4 to force an elimination game back in Arizona. This game saw a rematch between Curt Schilling and Matt Morris, and they lived up to the bill again. Reggie Sanders clubbed a 4th-inning solo home run as Schilling continued to cruise deep into the game. With 4 outs left to notch a series victory though, J.D. Drew powered the Cardinals to a tie game with his own solo home run, spoiling what could have been another complete game shutout for Schilling. But Schilling went the distance, completing the 9th inning and recovering from the tying solo blast to give the Diamondbacks Diamondbacks a chance to walk off into the championship series. After getting runners to the corners, Tony Womack stepped up to the dish with 2 outs and a chance to win the game. Womack's a guy we haven't mentioned to this point, and he's more known for his speed than his bat. He led the league in stolen bases 3 consecutive seasons from 1997 to 99. He notched 72 stolen bases in that last season in the window, but he hit a rough skid in this 2001 season like many other slumping Arizona hitters. But none of that mattered when Womack blooped one over the shortstop's head to bring home the winning run to clinch a round 1 victory, the first postseason series win in Arizona's brief history. Arizona won like they had done so all season, through clutch, timely hitting and dominant pitching. Curt Schilling tossed 18 innings of 1-run ball in 2 of their victories, and though they scored just 10 runs in the 5-game series, the Diamondbacks did enough to advance to the championship series. Waiting for them there was the final boss of the National League, the Atlanta Braves, coming off their 10th straight National League East Division title, but definitely were a weaker squad than they were in the 90s. Chipper Jones was heavily carrying the offensive load, the only player on the team with an OPS plus above 110. The pitching staff was efficient, but age was beginning to show its effect on guys like Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and John Smoltz, who spent a lot of the season injured. The one man who had plenty of playoff action, Randy Johnson, set the tone in Game 1 by throwing a complete game shutout of his own, striking out 11 Braves hitters and only allowing 3 hits to successfully beat Greg Maddux's own impressive showing. A pair of RBI hits from Reggie Sanders and Luis Gonzalez would be all the Snakes needed for a 2-0 win. But the Braves bounced back in a big way, with Marcus Giles swinging at the first pitch of the game in Game 2 and clubbing a leadoff homer off Miguel Batista. The Arizona bullpen faltered as they imploded in the 7th inning, allowing this game to run up to an 8-1 final score in the Braves' favor. Once again, the Snakes failed to win both of their home games as the series headed on the road to Turner Field in Atlanta, setting up another pivotal Game 3. Schilling got the ball for the 3rd time in this playoff run, and wouldn't you know it, Schilling tossed yet another complete game, his 3rd in as many starts, striking out a dozen batters and scattering just 4 hits. For a team that built their legacy in the 90s off starting pitching, the Arizona Diamondbacks were beating the Braves at their own game. With the Diamondbacks averaging less than 3 runs per game in their playoff run through 8 games played, their Game 4 performance was shocking to say the least, running up 11 runs scored on Greg Maddux and the Braves bullpen. This Luis Gonzalez 3-run bomb was the exclamation point on an emphatic 11-4 victory, putting Arizona 1 win away from a World Series berth with 3 games to spare. And they wouldn't need more than 1 game, with a well-rested Randy Johnson getting the ball in Game 5. Johnson finished 7 strong innings, and Byung-Hyun Kim came on for an impressive 6-out save. Kim was absolutely dominant in this series, tossing 5 no-hit innings with just 1 base runner allowed, securing 3 saves, including 2 6-out saves in both Game 4 and Game 5. The Diamondbacks wrapped up the NLCS in Atlanta in convincing fashion, claiming the series in 5 games en route to their first ever National League pennant. If the Atlanta Braves were the final boss of the National League, then the New York Yankees were the final boss of baseball in general. Every fan expected to see this team here in the Fall Classic, coming off 3 consecutive World Series victories and yet another American League East title in 2001. After a competitive ALDS against the Oakland A's and a shockingly dominant victory over the Seattle Mariners in the ALCS, which was the same team that set an MLB record with 116 regular season wins, it didn't look like any team was going to be in the Yankees' way. It was also a significant year for New York in general. Typically the villains of any baseball story, many found themselves rooting for the Yankees to be on the right side of history here, coming off the heels of the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers. It had turned the whole country upside down and heavily affected the sports world as well, with many not even sure at the time if sports events would even be safe to attend or occur in the first place. Now, on October 27th, a month and a half removed from the traumatic event, the 2001 World Series became one of the most viewed ever in one of the more unlikely matchups in baseball history. The Diamondbacks, fresh off a 5-game series win, had nothing to lose, advancing deeper into the playoffs than they ever had before in thrilling fashion. And while they were new to the postseason, they weren't inexperienced by any means, as they had no players in their starting lineup below the age of 31, making them the oldest lineup to ever make a World Series in baseball history. Game 1 took place in Arizona as both teams traded first-inning runs courtesy of a Bernie Williams RBI double and a Craig Counsell solo shot off of Mike Mussina. But while Curt Schilling settled in after the fact, the Diamondbacks continued to rally against Mussina, notching a 4-run 4th inning thanks in part to this Luis Gonzalez 2-run homer. He had now homered in every playoff series for Arizona to this point. That 5-1 lead turned into a 9-1 lead once the Yankees bullpen got involved, and that would be way more than Schilling needed, as he tossed 7 innings of 1-run ball for the win. From the 3rd third inning on, the Yankees' high-powered offense was held to just one Jorge Posada single. Although he didn't get the complete game this time, Schilling improved to 4-0 on the playoffs as the Diamondbacks became the first non-New York team to win a World Series game since 1997. And coming up next for them was Randy Johnson, who followed suit, tossing his second complete game shutout of Arizona's run. While Johnson faced the minimum in 6 of his 9 innings and struck out 11 Yankees, Matt Williams backed him up with a huge 3-run homer off Andy Pettitte in the 7th inning to lock up another win. Arizona outscored New York 13-1 in the first 2 games of the series, as Schilling and Johnson combined for 16 innings of 1-run ball in the desert. The series turned back to the Bronx, with the Diamondbacks trying to improve upon their 4-1 road record in the playoffs. But this crowd was electric, with a raucous first pitch from then-President George W. Bush, who called the pitch the greatest adrenaline rush of his entire life. The Yankees pulled out their biggest weapon in Game 3 with the season virtually on the line, which was American League Cy Young winner Roger Clemens. After dominant long relief performances in the previous 2 rounds, manager Bob Brenly felt comfortable enough to hand the ball to Brian Anderson. The 2 pitchers matched each other through 5 innings, both allowing just 1 run apiece. Jorge Posada, the only Yankee to hit safely through all 3 World Series games thus far, clubbed a solo home run in the second, while Matt Williams collected his 5th RBI of the series already with a 4th inning sacrifice fly. After a single and a walk in the 6th inning, Brenly opted to use the bullpen with 2 outs to try and keep the game tied. But Scott Brosius, a former World Series MVP, delivered the Yankees' biggest hit of the season with his go-ahead RBI single off Mike Morgan. From there, Clemens and Mariano Rivera sat down the next 9 Diamondbacks hitters in a row, striking out 6 to win a vital Game 3 by a 2-1 final score. This took us to Halloween, where an undefeated Curt Schilling got the Game 4 ball against El Duque, with the Yankees trying to even the series despite being thoroughly outscored to that point. The game sat tied at 1 apiece, with Shane Spencer and Mark Grace trading solo home runs early on. The 2 starters swapped dominant innings as the game advanced into the 7th, with Schilling wrapping up yet another fantastic start. This time, though, not yet in line for a win. The Diamondbacks broke through in the 8th inning off Mike Stanton, with a pair of RBI knocks from Rubio Durazo and Matt Williams to open up a late 3-1 lead. This almost certainly meant victory, as Brenly turned to his bullpen weapon in the 22-year-old Byung-Hyun Kim, who had yet to allow a single run in the playoffs and already had 2 6-out saves. He looked like his usual dominant self, striking out the side in an impressive 8th inning. With 2 outs in the 9th inning, Tino Martinez stepped up to the plate as the tying run. He didn't give Kim a chance to get ahead, as he drove the first pitch he saw over the fence in the right field seats to somehow tie this game. Kim, who had been perfect to that point, had blown his first playoff save, but he did escape the 9th as the game not only headed for extras, but for November as well, with the clock striking midnight on this late affair. The Yankees got to counter with their own dominant closer in Mariano Rivera, who pitched a 1-2-3 10th inning. Needing a scoreless frame, Bob Brenly sent Kim back out into the cold Bronx night, asking for a 3rd inning of work. In the end, Brenly's ask was too much, as after a 9-pitch battle to try and force another inning, Jeter earned himself the title of Mr. November with this unforgettable walk-off solo home run. As the New York crowd erupted and the Yankees celebrated another improbable win, it looked for a moment like the magic would be cut short in Game 5. With the series tied at 2 wins apiece, Mike Mussina redeemed himself with a much better start than his Game 1 outing. But a pair of 5th inning solo home runs from Steve Finley and Foolish Baseball legend Rod Barajas proved to be the difference deep into this game. On the other side, Miguel Bautista pitched the game of his life in his final start of the postseason. He tossed 7 2/3 shutout frames against the Yankees, navigating around 10 base runners without allowing a single one to score. The ball was once again handed to Byung-Hyun Kim, who was looking for redemption of his own, and he once again got 2 outs while allowing a base runner in a 2-run game in the 9th inning. In a carbon copy of his fate from the night before, this time it was Tino Martinez who crushed the game-tying 2-run homer in the 9th inning. In a series that could have been won in Arizona's favor at this point, they now entered extra innings in danger of falling behind in the series altogether. The Diamondbacks failed to score after loading the bases in the 11th inning off Mariano Rivera, and in the 12th inning, Alfonso Soriano put an end to another marathon game with this walk-off single off of Albie Lopez. Despite getting outscored 19-10 in the first 5 games of the series, the Yankees won a trio of 1-run games in front of their home crowd to improbably reverse the course of the series and head back to the desert ahead 3-2. For the Diamondbacks, their final hope was sending both of their aces back to the mound for Game 6 and Game 7, starting with Randy Johnson. Coming off the heels of 3 nail-biters in the Bronx, this game surprisingly turned into a blowout. Randy Johnson dealt 7 innings of 2-run ball, backed easily by Arizona's 15-run outpouring in the first 4 innings of the game. Andy Pettitte pitched arguably his worst playoff game ever, with the Diamondbacks notching 17 hits against him and Jay Whittisick in less than 4 innings. Pettitte later confirmed that he was tipping pitches in this game, calling it one of the biggest regrets of his long, illustrious playoff career. Every Arizona player notched a hit, including Randy Johnson, with 7 of the 9 recording multiple hits. The Diamondbacks won Game 6 easily with a 14-5 final score. This set up a Game 7 elimination game in Arizona, pitting Roger Clemens against Curt Schilling, the latter pitching on 3 days rest for the second time this series. Schilling's start here took him to 300 innings pitched on the season as well, but he was just as sharp as ever. He tossed 6 perfect innings, retiring the first 18 Yankee batters in order. On the other side, Clemens allowed a base runner in each of the first 5 frames, but surrendered no runs somehow. In the 6th inning, back-to-back hits from Steve Finley and Danny Batista got Arizona on the board with a 1-0 lead. The Yankees rallied to tie things immediately after, grabbing their first 3 hits of the night in succession in the 7th inning. After Roger Clemens finished 7 innings, Alfonso Soriano looked to build off his heroic walk-off in Game 5 with a go-ahead solo home run in the 8th inning off Curt Schilling. This knocked him out of the game, but Bob Brenly opted to stay away from his struggling young closer. He instead leaned into his starting pitchers who had dominated all season and all playoffs long. Just one day after throwing over 100 pitches to win Game 6, Bob Brenly called upon the big unit to try and keep Arizona's season alive in relief. Randy Johnson retired Chuck Knobloch, then tossed a 1-2-3 9th inning to further his legacy as one of the greatest pitchers to ever toe the rubber. On the other side once again was Mariano Rivera, as he was called in for a 6-out save, kicking off his night by striking out the side in the 8th inning. Before his entrance to this game, Mo had a 0.70 ERA and 77 2/3 playoff career innings. He was 24 of 25 in save opportunities in October play to this point, and a perfect 8 for 8 in his World Series chances. A comeback looked statistically impossible, down 2-1 going into the 9th inning. Mark Grace led off the 9th inning, singling to center field on the second pitch of the at-bat. Mo's errant throw on this comebacker was offset by a poor J. Bell bunt, gifting him his first out of the inning. But with 2 runners on, Tony Womack, the NLDS walk-off hero from weeks before, provided the most important and forgotten playoff hit of all time, with this game-tying double down the right field line on a 2-2 pitch. It can't be understated how unlikely this hit was, with Womack being one of the weakest hitters in the Arizona lineup, while Rivera held lefty hitters to a 187 batting average that season. Craig Counsell was hit by a pitch to load the bases right after, but manager Joe Torre left Mariano Rivera out there to finish what he started against the leader of the Diamondbacks, Luis Gonzalez. In a childhood dream of a matchup, bases loaded, 2 outs, 2-2 game, World Series on the line, Mariano Rivera fired an 0-1 pitch as the Yankees infield drew in to try and nab the runner at home and keep their season alive. Little did they know, they would be paving the way for Luis Gonzalez to deliver perhaps the most iconic World Series hit in baseball history. A bloop single ended up being the deciding factor in getting the Diamondbacks their first World Series win. They had conquered everything in their path to win the Fall Classic in just their 4th year of existence. Despite the close 7-game finish in the series, the Diamondbacks set a record for the largest run differential by a winning team in the World Series, outscoring the Yankees 37-14 for a margin of +23. Over the course of the 7 games, Arizona pitching limited the Yankees to a 183 batting average, the lowest for any team in a 7-game World Series set. After his Game 7 victory, Randy Johnson rightfully won World Series co-MVP alongside his ace counterpart, Curt Schilling. Finally, after 4 one-run games, 3 walk-off wins, and countless spotless pitching performances, this series is remembered as one of the greatest in baseball history. The Yankees were history, and the Diamondbacks became the future. At least, we thought so at the time. Arizona's franchise history is one of the strangest in the sport. They won the West again the next year, but failed to win a single playoff game, getting swept in a revenge series by the Cardinals. They tumbled into mediocrity, losing over 110 games in 2004 as Bob Brenly was fired and roster turnover began. They had only made it past the first round one other time in the 20 years since 2001 before this year, but there's always been a certain magic associated with the team's identity because of this special season. And now, in 2023, it looks as though it might have been rekindled with a young, exciting, brand new roster. Regardless of the outcome, it looks as though a brand new era of Diamondbacks baseball is upon us, but it's easy to forget that a lot of the groundwork was laid down by this championship-winning miracle team from the beginning of the century. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you stuck around this long, why don't you hear a word from today's sponsor? Thank you to today's sponsor, which is the DraftKings Sportsbook. Baseball season is winding down, but football season is in full swing. And if you're a fan like me, what makes it even more fun is betting. And right now at the DraftKings Sportsbook, you can get a free no-sweat bet with any same-game parlay bet. Or you can use my promo code OLIVE, bet $5 on any wager, and win $200 in bonus bets instantly. Use that bonus bet money on some same-game parlays. Pick out who's going to score a touchdown, how many receiving yards for a certain wide receiver, who's going to win the game. Combine all those bets for a shot at a huge payout at the end of the game. With my promo code OLIVE, you can bet $5 and win $200 in bonus bets instantly at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now. Start your sports betting career with my promo code OLIVE. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.